Today we'll be talking about the evolution of circus schools, particularly the schools that make up the FEDEC, which is the European Federation of Professional Circus Schools, of which Circadium is a proud member. We're going to go back, though, to the origins of circus schools and what was a very formative moment in the history of contemporary circus. We're going to begin by reading a section from Duncan Wall's The Ordinary Acrobat. If you know one thing about circus history, it's likely this: the circus was a family affair. For centuries, families owned the biggest circuses. They comprised most of the acts. Each had a specialty, a circus skill they passed down through the generations like a gift. For the Revels, it was wire walking. For the Franconis, horsemanship. They don't force their children to join, observed a reporter for the New York Times in 1903. The urge comes almost by instinct. They see their mothers riding or their fathers tumbling and immediately want to do it themselves. Of course, the circus wasn't the only business to function this way. For millennia, most professions worked according to the family model: carpenters raising carpenters, preachers raising preachers. What made the circus unique is how long this model persisted. During the 18th and 19th centuries, well after the rise of public education, circus performers continued to educate their children themselves. Being itinerant, circus parents found that it wasn't practical for them to enroll their children in stable schools. The system had technical advantages as well. Over time, each family developed an encyclopedia of practical arcana, what essayist Edward Hoagland once called a special whirlwind, momentum and glory, the craft of a lifetime piled on the craft of previous lifetimes. Circus children, or enfants de la balle, as the French call them, received this knowledge from a young age, from birth, basically. I knew more about timing when I was less than a year old than I did about walking, trapezist Alfredo Codona once noted in the Saturday Evening Post. They didn't just learn their skills, they lived them, an intuitive experience that translated into astonishing ability. During the 18th and 19th centuries, the majority of the great international circus stars hailed from circus families. Codona, son of a Mexican circus owner, was celebrated by Life magazine as the Nijinsky of circus. His wife, Lillian Lietzel, the daughter of a Czech acrobat, starred for Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, the biggest circus in the world. Circus children so dominated the circus landscape that it was even presumed, to some extent correctly, that only those born into the business could compete. The family system defined the circus for centuries. But while it provided the source for much of the circus's strength and allure, it also had a fundamental flaw. Ruled by families, the circus was what physicists call a closed system. Although the troupes traveled widely, they remained almost totally isolated from the outside world. On tour, circus families stuck to a consistent rhythm. Arrive, set up, perform the matinee, relax for a few hours, perform the evening show, move on. Fraternization with the outside world was permitted, but only to a certain point. They live in a world that is half childlike and half unreal, full of amazing simplicities, Morris Markey wrote for The New Yorker in 1927. The families held the world at arm's length for centuries, Steve Gossard, a trapeze historian, told me. They wanted people's money, but would refer to them as lot lice. To be fair, much of this was defensive, a natural reaction to the mistreatment circuses were forced to suffer on the road. But the families also participated in their detachment, and over time it had a deleterious effect. Beholden to tradition, each generation mindlessly duplicated the work of the last. It would never occur to them to make fun of the gaudy clothes they wear or the prankish things they do for the world's amusement, Markey wrote. In the early 20th century, a kind of artistic bubble enveloped the form. Technical ability continued to rise, but the art as a whole stagnated. A cheap uniformity ensued. Every show had the same elements: clowns, acrobats, jugglers, animal trainers. Even the details were identical, and to an astonishing degree. In every circus around the world, regardless of size or location, the rings were 13 meters in diameter. An act lasted 5 to 7 minutes. Ringmasters wore red coats and riding boots. Clowns had red noses. These weren't mere choices. They composed what circus scholars call the codes of the form. You didn't go to a circus, French circus writer Jean-Michel Guy once pointed out. You went to the circus. Of course, some people like these details and like to claim that the almost aristocratic dedication to tradition is vital to the circus's whimsical charm. The circus, they say, provides the comfort of stability. In our fast-paced, ever-changing world, it's reassuring to know that the circus you shared with your mother will be the circus you share with your son. But it's also totally bizarre. As a point of contrast, imagine if all music was classical. You could listen to Beethoven or Bach but no Beatles. Or what if the only dance that existed was ballet? This would feel silly and confined. And yet with the circus, almost nobody felt this way. People just took the stasis for granted. The story of how circus finally extracted itself from this creative hole is in large part the story of the development of circus education. It begins in Russia. In 1919, Anatoly Vasilyevich Lunacharsky, the newly appointed People's Minister of Education, summoned to Moscow the key players in Russia's circus industry, including administrators, intellectuals, writers, directors, and performers of various acts. 2 years before, the revolution had swept through Russia. Now the task was to discuss how the new communist state would handle the art. It wasn't a straightforward issue. Prior to the revolution, Russia had known a prosperous circus tradition. As early as 1793, Charles Hughes, a British equestrian and one of the original circus mavens, had quit England to set up shop in the court of Catherine the Great as her horse trainer. During the 19th century, numerous foreign circuses had toured the Russian countryside, and a few had even set up permanent shop in the bigger cities. The first circus built in Russia was established by the French equestrian Jacques Tournier, who settled in 1827 in what was then the Russian capital, St. Petersburg. With the arrival of the communists, however, Russia's circus industry had collapsed. Fearful of being subsumed by the state, most of the families, who were foreign, had fled abroad. If the Soviets wished to continue the tradition, they would have to create a new circus infrastructure from scratch. Lunacharsky's committee met for 2 weeks. The debate was surprisingly contentious. Some insisted that the circus was a distraction from public progress and so should be left to die. It has no place in our society, argued one offended party. We are building a world free of such depraved exploitation. Others, including Lunacharsky, who was backed by Lenin, strongly disagreed. Rather than abandoning the circus, they argued, the state should embrace and elevate the art. Our primary task must be to wrest the circus away from the opportunists who play to the baser tastes of the public, Lunacharsky declared during the meetings. The circus, he said, should serve as an academy of physical beauty and merriment. In the end, thanks largely to Lunacharsky's support, the notion of a developed circus prevailed. On August 26, 1919, Lenin signed the decision into law. Over the next decade, the circus in Russia would be transformed. According to the committee's recommendation, all of the circuses were brought under the operation of a single governing body. To encourage innovation, the state invited revered artists from other disciplines, including theater director Konstantin Stanislavski and poet Vladimir Mayakovsky, to create experimental circus shows. In circus labs around the country, artists and scientists developed new circus methods and equipment. Vladimir Durov, a celebrated clown, established Durov's Corner, a workshop specializing in the scientific study of animal training techniques. The famous Soviet Corps of Engineers invented the Russian bar, a flexible balance beam, and the Russian swing, a giant acrobat propelling swing. But the Soviets also faced a peculiar predicament. When the foreign circus owners had fled, they had taken most of their performers with them. The Soviet circus industry was brimming with big ideas, but had nobody with the technique to execute them. To remedy the problem, the state established the State College of Circus and Variety Arts in Moscow. Founded in 1927, the school was the first national circus school in the world and the first large-scale attempt at circus education. Based largely on Russia's famous ballet schools, the program took an interdisciplinary approach to education. The curriculum, which lasted between 4 and 7 years, addressed artistic as well as technical disciplines. Older students took ballet for line and philosophy for inspiration. Younger students studied math, physics, and chemistry to develop their intellects. In the beginning, the school was perceived by those in government, and even more so by those outside, as a kind of experiment. Circus families claimed it would never work, that acrobatic education had to start early and could not be formalized. But the results told a different story. In 1927, the year of the school's creation, 90% of all circus performers in Russia came from circus families. By the 1960s, that number had plummeted to just 20%. By the 50s, upward of 3,000 students were applying annually to fill the school's 80 spots. The Soviet circus, artful, refined, and stocked with circus school graduates, became the envy of the world. When the Moscow Circus first toured to America in the 1950s, the Wall Street Journal called it the most lively, talented, and attractive troupe in the history of the circus.
What's more fun than a 3-ring circus? Well, maybe a 1-ring circus, like this one from Moscow, that opens its American tour in New York's Madison Square Garden. The Moscow Circus will play 7 cities in the East and Midwest as part of the cultural exchange program between the United States and the Soviet Union. An American counterpart made up of the cream of our big top acts flew to Moscow from Chicago this summer. The sensation of the show is the Bear Act. Valentin Filatov's Bears joined the circus in 1949 and have been enchanting audiences ever since. Tokyo spectators couldn't believe the bears were for real. They still think they're men dressed up in furs. The motto of this merry-go-round is grin and bear it.
Today, the Moscow School is considered the most successful circus school in history and a fundamental step in the development of an artful circus. It opened the circus to the outside world and provided a model. Other circus schools soon followed. All these years later, the Moscow Circus School is still one of the best circus schools in the world, very prestigious and graduating wonderful artists every year. Let's take a look at this short video from 1996.
From the outside, it's like any dreary Moscow building. But go inside and something strange begins. The grey world at the door gives way to a world of colour and magic. But this is no place of fantasy. It's a school. Since 1927, it's been teaching young Russians the serious business of circus.
В России она одна, созданная в 1927 году. Первая профессиональная школа в мире, наверное, потому что русский народ очень любит цирк.
Its students aren't just agile, dexterous and determined. They've all decided there's nothing else they'd rather do.
Цирк – это искусство. Искусство – это красота. А красота спасет мир.
Потому что я без этого жить не могу. Я перепробовала все на свете и решила, что просто без музыки, да, просто без сцены я не могу, да и все.
Это мечта моего детства. Вот и все.
But the students need more than passion and dreams. They sit rigorous exams to be admitted and even more rigorous exams to pass.
Кроме специальных дисциплин, которые по специальности акробатика, гимнастика, жонглирование, эквилибр, то есть все жанры цирковые объединены, в том числе они проходят мировую культуру, иностранный язык, литературу своего народа. Мы даем всестороннее образование.
The school's fame has now spread to the West. 21-year-old Rasmus Madsen is one of 8 students from Denmark. They pay $400 a month for classes and accommodation.
Because it's one of the best schools in the world.
The end of communism hasn't just opened the school to fee-paying foreigners, it's made them a prized commodity. Over the past 5 years, the Russian government has cut funding by 40%. Financially, the school's performing without a safety net.
Actually, I don't know much about the economy here, but you can just look around and see it's a poor place.
It's certainly not the money that brings teachers here. Alexander Laren graduated from the circus school in 1949. He's been teaching here since 1969.
Вот у меня жена говорит, ну хватит, уже устал уже, хватит. Пока сила есть, так что... Так что лет много, но это не важно, так, лишь бы сила была.
For the 3 years and 10 months the students are here, they live and breathe the circus. Most of them live on the premises and all of them practice just about every day. But when it comes to getting a job afterwards, all the hard work can come down to just one performance. Today, the senior students are going through their last warm-up. A few hours from now, they'll be doing their graduation performance in front of an auditorium of examiners and talent scouts.
Это их путевка в жизнь. И от того, как они покажутся на этом дипломном спектакле, зависит их будущая работа.
Alex has a tentative offer from a Russian circus. His performance will determine if he gets a contract. This day has been a long time coming.
Мои родители тоже работали в цирке раньше. И они мне, как сказать, я уже с 4 лет уже работал.
Alex, Svetlana and Zhenya are among the best of the graduate class. But with acts that involve juggling and acrobatics, things can go horribly wrong.
Никто от этого не застрахован.
Да, могут там руки трястись там. Или что-нибудь еще. Споткнуться и упасть можно еще. Выходишь, сразу спотыкаешься и падаешь. И все, и можно уже все уходить сразу.
Мне, например, в тот раз сегодня 2 кружки разбила уже.
Кто?
Я серьезно не могу, все падает из рук.
И мы начинаем представление «Радуга цирка».
It's a daunting crowd. One half of the audience are friends and family, the other half are the examiners and talent scouts. For poor Zhenya, just about everything that could go wrong did. For Alex, everything went right. Almost. But on this particular day, Svetlana and her sister Marina were the stars that shone. Svetlana and Marina won first prize and a job in France. Alexander came second, but won his contract. Zhenya was picked up by a Russian circus. And despite his wife's objections, Alexander Larum will be back teaching next year's graduates.
This is a good time to mention that I'm not going to be covering every circus school in the world, just a few of the heavy hitters, and I'm continually learning about other circus schools that exist. Just this week I learned about the National Circus School of Ukraine, based in Kyiv, which was established in 1961. But for the moment, we're going to move further west to France to talk about what was happening there in the 1970s. Annie Fratellini was a famous clown in France in the 1970s. She and her partner, Pierre Tex, petitioned the French Ministry of Cultural Affairs to support the opening of a circus school. The first Fratellini school in Paris opened in 1974.
L'aventure débute au milieu des années 70. Le cirque connaît alors une crise d'identité et les spectateurs boudent les pistes. Mais de cette rencontre entre Annie Fratellini et Pierre Tex va naître un rêve. Celui de la première école du cirque de Paris.
Il fallait un cirque parce qu'une école sans la vie du cirque, en fait, ça n'était pas vraiment parfait.
350 élèves depuis hier?
Oui.
Ouais. De quel âge à quel âge?
De 6 ans à 30 ans. Il n'y a pas d'âge.
J'ai été là-bas élève pendant 1 an. J'ai pris mes premiers cours de danse, j'ai appris à jongler, j'ai appris à marcher sur un fil, j'ai appris toutes sortes de choses. J'ai commencé le mime, donc c'était très ouvert, très pluridisciplinaire et pour moi merveilleux.
La volonté de retrouver l'essence même, l'âme du cirque, pour moi c'était la chose la plus importante. Et je crois que j'ai payé beaucoup de ma personne et je suis vraiment heureux de voir qu'aujourd'hui les choses se poursuivent.
Et depuis 10 ans, ce chapiteau a surgi sur la plaine Saint-Denis pour devenir un des temples vivants des arts du cirque. Si jusqu'en 79, ces spectacles étaient l'affaire du ministère de l'Agriculture, à l'heure du 40e anniversaire, c'est bien la ministre de la Culture qui salue le chemin parcouru.
Annie Fratellini a ouvert avec Pierre Tex l'école pour justement que des enfants issus de tous les milieux, notamment des milieux évidemment défavorisés, mais pas seulement, qui avaient la passion du cirque, puissent apprendre le cirque.
Moi j'ai plutôt ma sensation, c'est qu'Annie elle a soulevé la toile et puis elle a dit allez vas-y, rentre là-dessous. Voilà, quand on est venu, parce que c'est vrai qu'il n'y avait pas d'examen, il n'y avait pas de... Elle essayait de sentir l'énergie, l'envie, et puis elle nous disait allez hop, allez viens.
Aujourd'hui, la philosophie reste la même, mais la sélection s'avère plus rude. Le cirque s'est professionnalisé. Une vingtaine d'apprentis se forment à l'Académie Fratellini chaque année pour devenir, à leur tour, les inventeurs du cirque de demain.
Now we want to talk about the National Circus School of France, le Centre National des Arts du Cirque, also known as CNAC. CNAC has two locations, one at Rosny-sous-Bois and one at Châlons-en-Champagne. Both locations are in the suburbs outside of Paris. Rosny-sous-Bois is in a chapiteau, and that is where the first 2 years of CNAC's higher education program take place, the preparatory part of the program. The second 2 years take place in Châlons. It's housed in a former historic circus building and also a brand new facility. And this school opened its original location in Châlons in 1984. CNAC includes 3 organizations, really. There's the higher education program, there's a professional development program for existing artists, and they also have an extensive documentation and research center. CNAC was established just a few years after the Fratellini School in 1984. By this time, the French government had begun to pay attention to the deterioration and closing of some of the country's largest traditional circuses. In 1978, they had commissioned a study. The study recommended establishing a fund for the modernization of the circus. Importantly, the commission transferred all responsibility for circus from the Department of Agriculture, where it was languishing because of the animals, to now the Ministry of Culture. When François Mitterrand, a socialist, was elected president in 1981, funding for arts and culture doubled. And when it came to circus, the culture ministers knew there could be no future for the art form without education. The result was the National Center of Circus Arts. The government also committed to fund circus the way they funded other art forms in France, accepting circus as an art instead of as a business. And this was critical to the way the circus evolved in France over the following decades. However, by the late 1980s, the National School was a mess. The staff were at odds with one another, clashing between traditional approaches and more modern ones, and the school cycled through 4 different directors in 5 years. In 1990, Bernard Turin assumed control of CNAC, and he transformed it. Turin was not a professional circus artist. He was a fairly renowned sculptor who specialized in installations, and he was also an amateur flying trapeze artist. His ideas for how to run the circus school were wildly innovative. He overhauled the technical curriculum, replacing it with a course of study based on his experience in the Beaux-Arts, with an emphasis on creativity and interdisciplinarity, known as polyvalence, as expressed through a kind of artistic osmosis. More than 100 artists from all manner of disciplines, theater, painting, sculpture, composing, dance, writing, and filmmaking, would nourish the circus with lessons from their disciplines, while also supplying the students with a sense of the thinking and the conditions of the creator, so that they could eventually design their own shows. In the circus world, especially among traditionalists, the policy changes were met with skepticism. People complained that the school lacked technical rigor. They said it was too intellectual and too artistically driven. Instead of having students create a final number, Turin added a year where the students would stay and create a full-length modern circus show under the guidance of an outside artistic director. To critics, this model was ridiculous. How would the students find jobs? But Turin disagreed. He felt the new system would provide the students experience in creating original work and exposure as well, since the final show would premiere in Paris, where producers, critics, and government ministers would be watching. In 1995, Turin's method was put to the test. After 4 years, his first complete class was graduating and would be performing its final show in Paris. For a director, Turin had selected Joseph Nagy, a young Yugoslavian-born choreographer. It was a risky choice. Today, Nagy is a bellwether of the French dance scene, but in 1995 he was still very much an upstart, known among modern dance specialists for a dark, almost dystopian style they like to label Kafkaesque. But Turin felt that Nagy had something to offer the circus, an intense playfulness that would translate, and he offered the choreographer carte blanche. Nagy's show, entitled Le Cri du Caméléon, The Cry of the Chameleon, premiered at the Parc de la Villette in 1996. The crowds who made the trek that night encountered a startling phenomenon. The show, based on a novel by Alfred Jarry, felt less like a circus than a piece of surrealist dance. The theme was metamorphosis, the tone abstract and unabashedly avant-garde. The performers dressed like Magritte characters in tattered brown trench coats, baggy pants, and bowler hats. The music was discordant. Trombones, snare drums, and xylophones battled messily. The circus skills were presented not as displays of prowess, but as the work of bodies in motion, theatrical elements creating a world that was at times deliberately disturbing. For one handstand routine, an acrobat wore a white plaster of Paris mask. At the culmination of the show, the performers arranged themselves into a kind of giant slug and slithered across the stage. The Cri du Chameleon was quite simply the strangest circus show France had ever seen. It was also a smash hit. After several weeks of sellout crowds, La Villette was forced to install televisions outside the tent to accommodate the audience. The show toured for almost 3 years with the same cast, playing over 300 performances in France and abroad, and at every stop, critics hailed its originality and creativity. Today, the Cri du Chameleon is considered one of the most important circus shows in modern circus history, in France and by extension the world.
Le même.
This was a huge step for contemporary circus and also for circus education. Most of the schools in the FEDEC now use something like Turin's model of polyvalence, where students are given exposure to many different artistic disciplines during their circus training. Also, most schools have a final show directed by a professional artistic director with their own original vision. You'll still see, in the graduation shows of CNAC, wildly original work, such as this show, Human, which was originally produced in 2018. Don't worry if you can't understand the French. The text in the show is completely absurd and nonsensical.
Oui! Ne bougez pas. Les personnages sont affublés d'un petit calepin à spirale pour retenir ce temps et expriment leurs émotions en tournant sur eux-mêmes. Un projet culturel audacieux et diablement populaire, d'autant plus irrésistible qu'il répond aux anxiétés populaires. C'est quoi? Un paysage.
C'est grandiose, c'est dément.
Non, c'est vide.
Première main,
deuxième main. Et t'es en stage?
J'apprends la victime. Premier pied, deuxième pied. Une victime avec des cris, des petits cris.
Les personnages représentés ont leur regard vide, absorbés par une pensée sans objet. Des raies à cerveau, les gens n'en sont nullement désassornés. Au secours! Le mal! Qui incarne le mal? Moi! Je veux bien. Quelle grandeur d'âme!
Incroyable, incroyable,
Incroyable! Incroyable!
incroyant. Petit tour.
Petit tour. Des fêtes! 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 Obligatoires! L'académique et l'art pompier, une vaste entreprise avec des tracts, impositions, annonces radio, des films de propagande et le tout proposé dans un coffret XXL.
Okay, the next circus school we want to talk about is the National Circus School in Canada. This is based in Montreal. The National Circus School, École Nationale de Cirque, or ENC, as it's often called, was founded in Montreal in 1981. At that time, there were no other schools like this in Canada or anywhere in North America. They took up residence in the premises of the former Center of Immaculate Conception, former community center. And there's a short video here from 1982 that you can watch with some interviews with the founders, Guy Caron and Pierre Leclerc. Enjoy.
Le cirque est une des formes de spectacle les plus anciennes et les plus exigeantes. L'audace et la dextérité des acrobates, des jongleurs, des funambules ont toujours exercé une grande fascination. Mais aujourd'hui, ce n'est pas sous le chapiteau qu'on vous emmène, mais bien dans les gymnases d'une école de cirque à Montréal, au Centre Immaculée Conception, où cette année, plus d'une centaine d'étudiants font l'apprentissage de techniques centenaires. Guy Caron, Pierre Leclerc, vous êtes directeur de l'école Circus. Pourquoi est-ce que vous avez fondé une école de cirque à Montréal?
Ça fait suite à une demande de différents groupes, soit de comédiens ou de personnes qui étaient intéressées à faire l'acrobatie. Et ils ont téléphoné ici au Centre Immaculée Conception parce que le centre est renommé pour la gymnastique au centre. Et on a tranquillement offert à ces gens-là des cours pour répondre à un besoin très particulier. Et de fil en aiguille comme ça, il y a eu de plus en plus de gens et on a senti le besoin de fonder une organisation qui pourvoyait des cours d'acrobatie. Tranquillement, on a grossi et c'est devenu l'école de cirque.
Depuis quelle année est-ce qu'on peut suivre des cours ici dans les différentes disciplines du cirque?
C'est la 3e année qu'on fonctionne et c'est la 2e année où on fonctionne avec un programme complet, c'est-à-dire un bloc de cours, une session de 15 semaines et c'est sur un an. Et c'est la 2e année qu'on fonctionne comme ça.
Guy, est-ce qu'il existe d'autres écoles de cirque au Canada?
Non, il n'y en a pas d'autres. Il y a des écoles de clowns, mais de cirque, ça n'existe pas. Tel que nous autres, avec le programme que l'on a, il n'y en a pas d'autres. On est la seule et unique. Hein? On peut être fiers de ça. Dans la tradition européenne du cirque, on a essayé de prendre les traditions qu'il y avait là-bas et les ramener ici, parce que le cirque à l'américaine, moi, les 3 pistes et puis tout ça, ça ne m'intéresse pas. C'est très américain. Fait qu'on essaie, nous, de garder cette tradition-là et d'aller chercher vers aussi les grands cirques qui existent, les Chinois, aller chercher vers aussi Moscou, qui sont les centres moteurs au niveau du cirque présentement mondial.
En quel sens est-ce que ça influence votre enseignement ici?
Ce qui arrive, c'est qu'il y a beaucoup d'écoles de cirque à travers le monde, je pense, qui se consacrent qu'à la technique comme telle. Et la technique reste une chose, c'est long, la technique. Apprendre à devenir un acrobate, c'est très long. Devenir un bon jongleur, c'est très long. Par contre, quand on arrive à travailler dans le métier d'artiste de cirque, ça demande plus qu'un technicien. Ça demande aussi d'avoir une présence sur scène. Ça demande d'être capable de jouer, d'essayer d'intégrer la discipline technique à l'intérieur d'un contexte théâtral. Alors, c'est un peu l'optique qu'on a pris à l'école, c'est d'intégrer des cours de jeu dramatique pour qu'on ne forme pas que des artistes techniques, mais plutôt des artistes qui ont une bonne technique et qui peuvent intégrer ça dans un contexte dramatique.
Comment se fait-il qu'on ne voit plus les cirques, les chapiteaux dans les villes? On dirait que le cirque est en perte de vitesse. Est-ce que c'est juste?
Non. Au Québec, ici, présentement, il n'est pas en perte de vitesse. Disons qu'il est en train d'avoir un regain d'énergie. Mais disons qu'en Europe, il y a une perte de vitesse à cause que après la guerre, on a défendu au cirque de rentrer dans les villes même. Donc, on les mettait en périphérie de la ville. Donc, plus le droit de rentrer dans la ville, aux portes. Donc, les gens, de moins en moins, allaient les voir. Puis surtout les guerres. On fait beaucoup quelque chose au cirque parce que après avoir été à la guerre, il y a des acrobates qui arrivaient amputés d'une jambe ou bien qui leur manquaient 2 bras pour jongler. C'est un peu difficile de jongler avec les pieds. Hein? Ça fait qu'il fallait recycler tout ça. Donc, il y a eu une baisse et la télévision également est arrivée. Puis il y a eu une baisse énorme au niveau des cirques. Puis il n'y a plus de place pour entrer les cirques dans les villes d'ailleurs. On ne peut plus les mettre à l'intérieur de la ville. Il y a des buildings partout. On les met à l'extérieur de la ville. Ça, c'est une chose.
Il y a le fait aussi qu'un gros cirque, ça coûte très cher. Ça coûte très cher de faire venir un cirque. Et il y a de moins en moins de possibilités de se construire un cirque, étant donné les coûts. Mais par contre, en Europe, actuellement, je pense qu'il y a un renouveau au niveau des petits cirques. Il y a beaucoup de petits cirques qui se promènent de ville en ville et qui travaillent et qui sont aussi des cirques de qualité, mais on ne voyage pas avec des animaux et toute la ménagerie. On voyage plutôt avec un petit groupe d'une 12aine d'artistes.
Et je vois que c'est un peu dans cette tradition que vous vous prolongez, messieurs. Merci beaucoup.
ENC grew quickly, and in 1989 the school moved to the Gare d'Alhousie, a former train station located near the old port in the center of Montreal. Then, in 2003, they co-founded, along with Cirque du Soleil and the Tohu Theatre, La Cité des Arts du Cirque, a large area in the neighborhood of Saint-Michel that's dedicated to Circus. Their new building was custom designed for Circus. It includes a Circus library that's one of the best in the world. ENC describes itself as a veritable laboratory of experimentation, research, and design for circus artists, as well as one of the most important centers of innovation for the sector of the performing arts in the entire world. Today, ENC has over 100 full-time students in their professional programs and wonderfully accomplished graduates who often go on to international competitions or contracts with Cirque du Soleil. Here's a little glimpse of ENC today. The other major circus school in the province of Quebec is called the École de Cirque de Québec in Quebec City, also known as ECQ. ECQ was founded in 1995, and its first facility was the gymnasium of the Louis Joliet Center, and then they moved to something called the Exposité Youth Pavilion. They were finally able to acquire their current building, which is an old church, in 2003. It's in the heart of the Vieux-Limoilou district, and ECQ offers a 3-year professional training program, similar to Montreal. Also, the 2 different types of degrees called the DEC and the DEE.
Yeah. Hey, my name is Sarah Poole, and I am the Director of Higher Education at the École de Cirque de Québec, or the Quebec City Circus School. And our program is a 3-year professionalizing program, and we really focus on, it's a generalist program, so when people come to us, they arrive with a specialty, and then they're also going to develop another specialty at the same time, because what we really want to be able to develop is a feeling of collaboration, working together to build shows. We do a lot of our performance work, which is outside. We work with different kinds of audiences, and we really want to be able to have people who, yes, build acts, but then are also able to do all the things in the in-between, supporting each other, working together in multidisciplinary styles. So that's us.
And here's a little glimpse of some ECQ students performing. This is the 3rd year students in the recent graduating class 2023 performing the equivalent of our thesis presentations at the end of their school year. We are heading back to Europe now, and we're going to hear a few words from the director of the program in Stockholm, known as SKH.
Hi, I'm Alison Funk. I am the head of what we call the Circus subject at Stockholm University of the Arts. Elsewhere we might call it a department, but we are actually part of a larger department. So let me tell you about what our school is. We have Stockholm University of the Arts. It has 7 arts subjects in it. We have dance, dance pedagogy, opera, acting, circus, film and media, and scenic arts like set design, wig design, lighting. In each of these subject areas, we include 1 bachelor's program or more, at least 1 master's program, independent courses at the university level, and doctoral students that are part of it. Our whole university is focused on artistic research in the arts. So we're really interested in how, in every art form, the art form describes itself, how we investigate the own art form through the practice of the art form, and how knowledge of that art form can develop knowledge outside of the art form. Come check out our website. But the thing is that all of our professors across the whole university, all of the graduate work, doctoral students, master's students, it's all in artistic research. So in Circus, our bachelor students, we have a 3-year bachelor program. We take a class of students every second year. So we do auditions every second year. Next year, we'll be doing auditions. Next autumn applications, 2024. Spring auditions, we'll take a new class in 2025. Right. So we have in our program, the graduation project of the students, of our bachelor students, is an artistic research project in Circus, where they're beginning to learn that. Our 2-year master's program is entirely artistic research in Circus, and our doctoral students, we have 2 right now. One is finishing in the spring, one is finishing in 2025. And their work is entirely in artistic research in Circus. And we do have activities that we disseminate online. We have conferences and that kind of thing. Half Swedish, half English, half whatever language people are speaking. About the bachelor program, the program itself started in the late 90s as a professionalizing program that was started by the same people who began the Swedish circus company Circus, Tilda Björfors and friends. And so then they thought, if we need contemporary circus in Sweden, like we need a school in order to do that. So they made a program, but it was very difficult to keep the program going without the sustainability of a higher education program. So eventually the dance school, the dance and theater school, we discussed about it, the dance school took the bachelor program, and that became the University of Dance and Circus, which you might have heard of before. It's called DOC, and that merged in 2014 with several other arts universities in Sweden, which we now call Stockholm University of the Arts. Okay, so kind of a circus trajectory that you will find in many places. So our students arrive to the program with a primary discipline. In our selection process, we look at what discipline they already know, because we'd like to have them push their vocabulary, their artistic voice, how they're doing it, not only what they're doing. And so through the course of the 3 years, in the first year we focus a lot on developing techniques. So developing techniques in the discipline, developing techniques in dance or theater or clowning or magic, or it's also where we do some history courses, knowledge of the body, stuff like that, developing techniques. In the second year, we focus a lot on the artist and audience. So show, what is a show? What is composition of a show? What's the intention of a show? They do more projects where they do shows, collective creations. We go see more shows. We start doing show critique. They have an ensemble project in the spring term, which is a large collective creation. They also do a small project called short shows, where they get to develop their own little mini show. And in the third year, they have 2 big projects. So it goes from like little things to like that's how I see the program as program head. So you'll just have to take my word for it. And they, in the third year, they have 2 big projects. Spring term, they still do all their discipline courses, but they work with their artistic research question, and they have a presentation in December usually. They also write a paper. They write basically a thesis paper. The papers aren't that long, but they're important. So it doesn't have to be a lot of words, but they have to tell us about how they came to the idea, what their questions were, what their influences are, who the audience is, like who might be interested in what field. And so they write about their performance, and then they have to defend that paper in kind of a conference style thing with other students, and they also have to oppose another student. What we mean by oppose is like a critical friend, where you're saying, yes, can you tell me more about why you think brutalist architecture matters to this performance? Which has come up, right? So how do we push on the thinking of why? That's autumn. In the spring, we do a project called Closing Acts, where they do a very classical short form act. And that is, we know it's not the most contemporary version of circus that exists, but we still think it's really important that they have a short form, this is what I do, this is how I represent myself on stage, this is a short composition. They can take that and work with it, they can take it and audition with it, they can break it apart and do other things, but we know we can put them all in one space for an hour and a half and have an audience, so that's very helpful. And since in second year, we go back to second year, they're doing longer shows. They have a 30-minute solo show that they can do. We're okay that in the third year what they do is research and an act. And then when you guys do that, and you've been out in the world performing, come apply for our master's program.
Moving over to the UK now, we want to talk about the National Centre for Circus Arts in London. It used to be called Circus Space, and it was founded in 1989. In 1994, Circus Space moved to the Shoreditch Electric Light Station, a former power plant. And then in 2014, they changed their name to the National Centre for Circus Arts. They offer a bachelor's degree program in partnership with the University of Kent, and they're a member of the Conservatory for Dance and Drama in the UK.
So, as I say, my name is Adrian Porter. I'm the Head of Higher Education Delivery here at the National Centre for Circus Arts in London. I'm also a board member of the FEDEC and a board member in a small community theatre that does quite a lot of work in circus and programming of circus in North London called Jackson's Lane. So I am currently, or the team here is currently rewriting our course. So it used to be a 2-year foundation course with a 1-year BA top-up. And actually we're switching this and we're making it a 3-year bachelor's program. Throughout the 3 years, it's split into, or each year is split into 4 distinct chunks. So the first chunk is contextual studies, which is the theory around circus, analysis of circus, critical analysis, and also ideas, things like giving feedback, how to solicit feedback and how to give it in a positive way. But also it's things like the history of circus and also professionalization. So what does it take, aside from being able to do your apparatus or to perform on your apparatus, what does it take to be able to be a performer? So there's the business side of that. The second chunk is performance aesthetic, which is what are the components of a good performance, and this is all centered around your devised pieces, ensemble pieces. There are presentations throughout the year where you are able to present your ideas to students and get your feedback so you can develop for later on. Then there is performance technique, which centers around what aspects of theatre and what aspects of movement actually drive and help to develop the circus practice. And then lastly, there is circus practice, which is split up into some different areas. So some of it is about physical preparation, some of it is about discipline, some of it is about anatomy and physiology, and others is about the psychology of training, the psychology of performance. So what we look for in our students at the outset, and actually what we try to kind of grow as they go along, is the students' capacity for curiosity. We try to identify and push their capacity for bravery, but also empathy. And the reason why we think about this in terms of empathy is because it's actually about your connection, not only with the audience members, but also with the ensemble team that you might be working with, or with the technical team that you might be working with. So it's really important for the student when they leave here to understand themselves as an individual, but also as an individual within the ensemble context. And essentially what we'd like you to be able to do, or what we'd like our students to be able to do at the end of this, is to be fully autonomous. So not only to work creatively and develop their work creatively as an individual, but also to develop their work creatively within an ensemble context, which means generosity, and also being able to accept other people's ideas over your own. But also, how do you market yourself? How do you sell yourself? One of the other aspects of the program is, as much as possible, and this is particular to the third year, and that's all around how you, that's around having as many opportunities to perform externally as possible. So right now we're developing relationships with festivals in order to facilitate this.
Let's take a look at a promo video for the National Center for Circus Arts.
I take your pain away. Some people talk about you like they know all about you. When you get down, they doubt you. And when you tip it on the scene, yeah, they talking about it. Cause they can't tip on the scene, what you talk about it. Talk about it. When you get elevated, they love it or they hate it. You dance up on them haters. Keep getting funky on the scene while they jumping around you. They trying to take all of your dreams, but you can't allow it. Cause baby, whether you're high or low, or whether you're high or low, you got to tip on the tightrope. Tip on the tightrope. Baby, baby, whether you're high or low, baby, whether you're high or low, you got to tip on the tightrope. Now let me see you do the tightrope. And I'm still tipping on it. See, I'm not walking on it or trying to run around it. This ain't no acrobatics. You either follow or you lead. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Or keep on blaming the machine. Yeah, I'm talking about it. Talking about it. I can't complain about it. I gotta keep.
There's another circus school in the UK, and this one is near and dear to my heart. It's called Circus, and it is my alma mater. It's where I went to school. Circus was formed in Bristol in the mid-1990s. There had been a previous incarnation of the school called Full Time, which kind of fell apart in the early 1990s. And then in 1994, Circus opened with their first class. I was part of their second class in 1995 is when I started there. Circus at the time only had one location called Kingswood, which is in the suburbs of Bristol in England. And soon after I left in the late 90s, I think early 2000s, they acquired another property, which is the St. Paul's Church in the center of Bristol. So now they have two locations, one in the center of town and one in the outskirts of town. Circus is very influential on the curriculum of Circadium because the physical theater program, which was started by Bim Mason, the original director of the school, is influenced by the Jacques Lecoq curriculum. Bim was a Lecoq graduate and felt that was a really important pedagogy for circus students. So we follow that methodology as well, and also the Friday presentations originated from Circus, which also does frequent presentations by their students, mostly based in the theater curriculum. Let's take a look at a recent Circus promotional video.
This is for the curious and the creators.
For the performers and the risk takers. For the movers and the storytellers.
This is for you.
This is where we hold ourselves still against an ever-changing sky. Where we decide when to relinquish control and let gravity take over.
We feel the momentum build and we carry it with us through every spin and every swing. We seek out provocation, and if the rules don't fit, we rewrite them.
We see the barrier between spectator and spectacle, and we break it.
Every classroom is a community.
We've made a home here, and with every push and pull and drop of sweat and beating heart, we're building our future. Here, your creativity and individual expression is not only respected, but encouraged.
This is a safe space to experiment and discover who you are and what you want.
Remember that minds and personalities need developing just as much as physical skills.
You will be challenged, pushed, supported, and valued. You'll do the impossible. In fact, you'll redefine the entire concept altogether. So share in a celebrated legacy of unique performance training at the UK's oldest school for contemporary circus and physical theatre. And if this feels like you, then you are Circus Media.
Okay, in the interest of time, we are going to just crash through a bunch of other circus schools so you have a basic familiarity with them. Here we go. Codarts is a university in Rotterdam that teaches music, dance, and circus. It had its origins in a few different music and theater schools that dated back as far as the late 1800s, but it wasn't until the year 2000 that it moved to its current location and established itself under the name Codarts, and the circus program opened in 2006. It's a 4-year program. Next on our list is ISAC in Brussels, Belgium. The precursor to ISAC was a school called l'École sans filet, which translates to the school without a net. This school was the base for many different artistic and educational projects, and one of those was ISAC, which was housed in the Centre Scolaire du Souverain till 2017. It started as a preparatory school, training a whole generation of artists who are still influential figures in the field of contemporary circus. And it was soon recognized as a superior arts college by the French-speaking community in Europe. It was beginning to run out of space in the late 2010s, and so they committed to renovate a former boiler room on the Seria campus in Anderlecht to add a second building dedicated to training and public performances. ISAC's new home, designed by the architect Daniel Delgoff, was opened in April 2018. The Lido is another school in France worth mentioning. It's based in Toulouse and has a very creative and fun program. I'm going to share with you one of their promo videos from 2017 because I think it's my favorite circus school promo video ever. Here you go. Heading over to Spain, we have Carrampa in Madrid. Carrampa was formed in 1994. It has a professional training course that is 2 years long, and it's housed in a circus tent in a beautiful urban park. Then we have FEDEC, which is in northern Portugal. It's a school that opened in 2017, and they have a professional training program along with a preparatory program, and they have 72 full-time students. The last school we have time to talk about today is NICA in Melbourne, Australia. NICA was formed in 1999, and it's been really transformative for Australian circus over the last 24 years. NICA's having some problems right now because the university that it's partnered with, Swinburne University, is not sure that it's going to be able to continue the program, and it's in danger of having to close the school. These are only a few of the circus schools around the world. The FEDEC has over 80 members, and it's growing every year. More and more countries are embracing formal circus education for aspiring professional artists, and we're seeing the benefit of this in the rich diversity of contemporary circus. For the growth of the art form, it's not only important that students have a place to train, it's also important that these schools network with each other, with other performing arts institutions, with government agencies, and with funding sources. In this way, a career as a circus artist becomes attainable for a great variety of young people, and audiences are truly able to see the expressive capacity of circus arts.